Some of the Virginia children who died in unlicensed daycares over the last decade were infants, just 5 and 8 months old.
Daycare advocates say despite calls for change, little has been done to protect children. Now, Governor Terry McAuliffe is pushing to strengthen daycare safety. And Erin Kelly spent the past month looking at how we got to this point and what's next. Erin?
Well, a recent report shows that 2014 was the deadliest year for children in unlicensed daycares in the last decade. Lawmakers are working on a flurry of bills introduced in the General Assembly this year. The family of one child has worked on legislation in the past and says this push for more regulation is long overdue. 9-month-old Hannah Weiss loved the things that babies love: bouncing and being held.
She was very sociable, loved to play with her sister.
And when it was time to find a daycare, parents Nick and Trish were picky.
Called probably about 8 or 10 people, and first question I asked was, "Are you licensed?" And she said yes, that she was licensed and had been for about 11 years.
After Hannah spent 7 months at a Virginia Beach home daycare, Trish got the call.
It was 2:03.
Hannah wasn't breathing. Trish raced to the daycare home, stopping only when she reached a police officer.
He said, "I'm sorry, she's already gone." And I thought he meant to the hospital in the ambulance. And so I started to turn and leave to hurry and get to the hospital. And I said, "Well, what hospital are they at?" And I could just tell by the look on his face that that's not what he meant.
Hannah was dead. The autopsy ruled her death undetermined, sudden, and unexpected. What the Weiss family didn't know was that Hannah's daycare provider wasn't even supposed to be running a daycare because years earlier, police said she admitted she put kids in a closet. And there's this. According to court paperwork, at the time of Hannah's death, the daycare provider was not licensed and had 20 kids in the home. State law says you have to get a license when you have more than 5 unrelated kids in your care.
They should get licenses from us to make sure that there are some basic protections.
We had heard that Governor Terry McAuliffe planned to tackle this issue, so we asked him, what is your plan to make this better?
When you drop off your loved one at work or school, you want to make sure that you've done everything humanly possible to keep that environment safe.
He wants to require more than 1,900 daycare providers in Virginia that get money from the state to get licenses. A Washington Post investigation found that of the 69 children who died in daycares in the last 10 years, 51 were in unlicensed facilities. Who is to blame for this not having been changed before?
Our policymakers, our legislators have not moved on it in the past. When it's come up in the past,
Sharon Veach, head of Child Care Aware of Virginia, said we have known about the dangers of unregulated daycares for decades, and little has been done. A 1990 report from the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Commission recommended, quote, all programs and individuals providing daycare services be regulated.
If you have a license through the state, then you will receive that training, and there'll be fewer tragedies. And that's what this is about.
Delegate Eileen Fillercorn has worked on a bill this year that would make daycares get a license, no matter how many kids are in the home. Trish and Nick feel strongly that daycare should undergo some kind of training and regulation, even if it's not a license. But whatever lawmakers come up with this year, it will be too late for Hannah.
So every year that passes, I look at that group of kids in my school and think, oh, I wonder if she would look like that little girl, or, wonder who her teacher would be, or would she dress like them?
I mean, we never got to say goodbye. That's the hardest part.
I did have a chance to talk to Hannah's daycare provider. She told me that she supports anything that would help with licensing, but didn't want to talk about Hannah's death. As we told you at 5, we talked to daycare providers who say they do just fine without licensing. Some of them even voluntarily register to get background checks. Child care advocates say they know there are wonderful daycare providers that are not licensed. They just think certain health and safety requirements are important. Erin Kelly, 10 on your side.